Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and today we are doing a Game of Thrones retrospective. It's just over a year since one of the biggest shows in TV history came to, well, a conclusion. And today we're here to talk about that conclusion as well as the series at large now that we have had a little bit of time away from it. So for this video, I decided instead of just kind of ranting and raving myself yet again, that I would make this more of a discussion and a little bit more of a roundtable. So I've invited two of my friends here to discuss the show with me. So first, I have Alex Madden.
Hello. Sorry if I'm a little dark, but it's the best I can do right now. So,
He's honing in on his episode 3 there for our review right now. And then I have Brett from BAMTubeTV. Hi, Brett.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well.
Good,
So
good.
I recently just had both of you on for my last couple of series. So I'm excited to actually have a discussion with you this time around. Now, both of you
yeah.
obviously watched Game of Thrones. When did
hmm
you jump on the Game of Thrones train, per se? Alex, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so I actually didn't start this when it first aired in 2011. I started watching the show before season 7. Like
Oh,
that's how late I got into
really late bloomer.
the game. I tried into it about 3 or 4 times, couldn't get into it. Finally, the fifth time, something just clicked. Maybe it was just because it was like season 1 is like a little, you gotta grasp who the characters were, which I don't think I could do at first. Anyways, it's like you gotta grasp who the characters are. You gotta grasp what the storyline is. You gotta grasp almost everything there is to know about Game of Thrones. Like I thought it was going to be more like a hack and slash type of show rather than like this political drama. So I think that's why I couldn't get into it at first. And then when I finally saw like the previews for season 7, I was like, that looks freaking cool. I want to watch that now. And so that's when I started. And then I'll admit I watched season 4 in like 5 days. That's the quickest I finished a season of Game of Thrones. But yeah, that's how I got into Game of Thrones.
All right, what about you, Brett?
I was a bit of a late bloomer, not as late as that, but I was a little bit later. I remember I had to binge watch it. It was a few of my friends had watched it, and they had told me like it's really good, man. You'd love it. Like I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings and things like that. So like you're totally gonna love the show. So you got to get into it. So I started probably a month before season 4 came out. So I had to binge watch the first 3 seasons, and then I was able to watch the season 4 premiere live. So that's when I started out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I guess I feel a little bit a little bit better about my crazy reaction. So I am season 1, been there since the beginning. Okay, first question. Are we all in agreement season 8 is the weakest of the seasons?
Yes.
Or does somebody disagree?
I've always been kind of like it's kind of right in the middle, but I'm slowly starting to like it a little bit less. Even when I had my positives, because Larry, you know this, like right off the bat, like I was a fan of season 8. I could acknowledge the negatives, but I thought everybody was going crazy over season 8 for nothing. I was like, it's for me, like when season 8 was airing, it was more just like people like because they can't accept that it's ending. Oh, people don't like this because their fan theories aren't coming true, which is a big reason I don't like fan theories. But then when you really think about it, it's like I'm more on the mixed side, I guess, because it's like yeah, there's a lot of stuff in it that I like, and I think that there's a lot of good ideas. But it's more just like it's not what they did; it's more how they did it. It's just it's the execution of like how everything was handled. Like I was fine with Daenerys going all Mad Queen. It's just too little to get there. I think, even though we had previous proof that that was going to happen, or like previous like hints at it in previous seasons that it was going to happen, I don't. Everything just kind of feels really rushed. And back then, when I first saw this season, I don't think I could have accepted it. because I was just like, isn't like everybody was treating it like it was the worst thing like that was ever made, and I was like, I've seen 1,000 things that are worse than this, but now I'm just like I'm thinking about it more. Like I haven't even got season 8 on DVD. Like I just had the first 7. So like thinking about it now, it's just like yeah, that was kind of a mixed bag. When this season first aired, I did actually like episodes while still acknowledging some of the flaws that they had. I was never a fan of the finale. Still am not a fan of the finale. But now, kind of looking back on it, I'm just like, I can kind of see where people are coming from now.
All right, so
Yeah.
Alex kind of answered my next question. So, Brett, how do you differ now from where you were last year when the season concluded?
Well, Larry, I actually remember that when these episodes were first airing, everyone was kind of like live tweeting or tweeting the reactions afterwards. I vividly remember Alex being the only guy and like the burning fire, like, this is okay, like, it's not that bad. Everyone else was like losing their minds, and Alex was like, it's okay. I don't know, he was like,
I think I think I think for me too, like season 8 will always kind of be special to me because it was the first season that aired on my birthday, which was April 14th.
Oh.
right,
So yeah, so I was
right.
just like, yeah, I'm like so excited, and like I thought the first 2 episodes were actually really good.
And I remember me and Larry were like, along with most other people, were like very heated. We were very upset, very angry with the majority of the episodes. Since then, it's not that I like it anymore, I'll say, but I've kind of come to terms with it. Like I've come to accept it. Like the show's over. There's not going to be any release the George R. R. Martin cut. There's no other.
Well,
There's no alternative takes. There's no rewrites coming. We're not getting a redo. So I've just kind of
Right.
come to accept it for what it is. And not, like I said, I'm not saying I like it any more than I do because I still have my
Yeah.
gripe, and it's still a tough pill to swallow with some of the decisions they made. But it's just it hit the point where I'm just like I'm not giving it any more of my effort or time. Like I don't like
Yeah.
it, and that's not going to change. And they can't, they're not going to make me like it. There's no redos. It's just it is what it is type thing.
Yeah, I think that's what it is for me too. It's just more of like I think that was kind of my whole mindset when watching it too. Is just more of like it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about it.
yeah. So I had distanced myself a little bit for a while. But I don't know what it is. It just re-emerged across my personal like timeline and internet and YouTube suggestions again,
Yeah, I don't know.
or going back and reading people's comments, whether they were from a year ago or they were like new comments. I don't know. It just kind of got me heated all over again. So I tried, y'all. I tried not to make another video, but people it was too much over the past like month, and people were getting on my nerves. So that's why I said I brought other people on to kind of tone myself down maybe a little bit. But yeah, I'm still, in some ways, I think I find it a little bit more offensive as I've been able to analyze some aspects of the show at large, and some things I think, regardless if George R. R. Martin were to do them as well, I still find them a little bit problematic in nature, and that's been a little bit of Game of Thrones at large. Is I've loved the show for all these years, but there have been aspects to it that had their problems when you kind of are just viewing it from a female perspective or from a person of color perspective. There have been problems there, as there is in fantasy at large. Other things, I guess I have dulled a little bit on. And unfortunately, I don't know that we're gonna get George R. R. Martin's writing. Maybe we'll get a ghostwriter to finish this series off and his
I
ideas,
know.
because
I think he's gonna be dead by the
Well, yeah,
time we
I don't know
finish.
what's gonna happen.
you said release the George R. R. Martin cut. There is none. I mean, he don't even have a book out. I don't know. As a
Yeah.
businessman, he should have had that book ready after this season finale, because it would have sold like mad with people just
Yeah.
wanting something else other than that season 8 script. And here we are a year later, and I don't think we've heard another word about it. George R. R. Martin's off doing like random weird stuff with his career. I don't know. Part of me thinks he's like a little bit indignant towards the fans at this point, but we'll see. Maybe he will release one of them, but he's got to get 2 more books out. I don't
I
know.
know. And you got
Yeah.
to think about it too. They're all like 14 to 1500 pages. It's like
Oh
Jesus.
yeah.
I mean, he has to have something for the next one. Like something has to be
Yeah.
done for that one at this point. I mean, it's been what,
Yeah.
it's 10
Yeah.
years now,
Oh
but
yeah.
I know.
just kind of looking back at it, I guess I want to address kind of the problems that people had, and if looking back at it, there's still problems, or maybe they were overblown as part of the reaction, or maybe they're even worse than we thought. Who knows? So I think this one we definitely agree on. Even though Alex is not having it in last place, 8th out of 8, I think we all agree, everybody, even those who defended it, agreed it was a very, very rushed conclusion to give
Mhm.
the end of a pretty
Mm,
slow moving,
mm,
really takes its time, developed series. And
Yes.
then we come to a close in 6 episodes that are a little over an hour long, that
Mhm.
just that had literally had 3 baddies to take down in the span of six
mm.
episodes. I mean,
Episode. Yeah.
that's
You
insane.
needed more time. You needed at least 4 to 6 more episodes, I think.
Yeah, I think both the last two seasons, 7 and 8, both should have been just a regular 10 episodes. They should have let
Yeah,
it
they
flesh it
should have
out.
been 10. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the biggest thing. I wouldn't say it's the biggest issue because I think there are bigger issues, but yeah, it was the rushing of everything. Like
Yeah.
Larry put it perfectly. It was such a slower, very fleshed out and character driven show for 6 whole seasons, and then just to try to cram it all into like what was it, 7 and then 6 episodes in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
It's just it's way too little time after a show that's really taken its time over the years just to try to cram everything up and wrap it up in a nice neat little bow. It was
Right.
too much in a short time frame.
It was also just too like I remember them saying that like almost every episode in 8 was gonna be like close to like an hour and a half, hour and
Yeah.
40. I was like, oh my god, these are gonna be like feature length movies, and then like only like 2 or 3 of them were like that. I was just like,
Yeah.
they kind of lied to us about that show.
Basically.
And even that, I think they uh, they kind of wasted their hour and a
Right.
half. Episode 5 obviously maybe was at least one of the 3 most divisive episodes in the series, maybe
Yeah.
4 in the last 4. But episode 5, it feels like such a waste of time almost to have, what did they have, like 45 minutes of a city burning,
Pretty
and
much.
Okay.
it's like, I don't know. It was
Yeah.
overkill. It was too much. It was like, okay, we get it. Can we? We have a lot to cover still. Can we get on with it? Even episode 3,
Hmm.
the White Walker episode. Even that, it felt like a lot of that was used really well, but at the end of it, it did feel a little bit like, again, I don't know. It felt like more should have been accomplished, or more
Yeah.
should
I
have been done.
I agree, definitely, because I've been a defender of that episode because people were just like, I think that's where the huge like outcry started because everybody was just like,
Yes.
oh, it's too dark, I can't see. Like I was like, I can see fine. It's just I love the sequence with the Night King where like I think it's like everybody steps aside and there's like that haunting like creepy ass music,
The
and
music.
then Arya, yeah, yeah, and then Arya comes in and kills him. I was just like, but that's it. Like that's how he goes out. I feel like that's kind of what I mean when it's like good ideas but like poor execution. Like it was a great
Mm.
idea to have the Night King in that episode, have kind of the White Walkers. From what I'm remembering, I think they kind of like step aside and like freeze or something. I don't really
Yeah.
remember. And then like just that music, but in Arya killing him was just awesome. Like I thought that was great for Arya, but it just felt kind of anticlimactic, I guess.
Well, again, talk about wasted time. We got like almost, it felt like a full minute of Bran and the Night King just staring at each other.
Oh yeah, I
Like
kind of
it was just
remember
like,
that.
what's going on? Why are we sitting here this long waiting? And Brett, so this was one of the most divisive things of
Hmm.
season 8. How did you feel about Arya being the one to take down the Night King?
I, hmm, it's a tricky one. I didn't mind it per se. I agree with Alex in the sense that it was a cool thing to do, and it was pretty badass and stuff. And I'm fine with Arya being the one to do it, but I think just kind of the way it happened, like you said, it was so anticlimactic, just for such a big character They built up over 7 seasons. It was coming. Winter was coming. That was the whole thing at the beginning of the show, and then it finally arrived. And then the Night King, and especially too, they took like the biggest cop out, and it happens in so many movies, where it's like the heroes are outnumbered and they're this and that. And it's like, oh wait, you just destroy the mothership and then everything else falls apart,
Yeah.
or just destroy this one bad guy. He just shanks the one guy, kills the Night King, and then everything's fine. It's peace across the land. They're going after centuries and millenniums of all their, taking over and how long the last winter was and all this fear. Stab him once and the entire army falls apart. And I was like, come on. Like, what were they so scared of then? It just, you know what I mean? It felt so flat. But again, with Arya, good for her. I love her as a character, and she was one of the best characters, and to see her arc through the whole show was great, but just the way they went about it, and it was just such a simple cop-out. It's just like, prick, everything's gone. It's
And even the
game, and the flowers started sprouting, and I was like,
even the execution of that scene, again, I also was on the thing, because people were trying to call Arya a Mary Sue, which I thought was really ridiculous. We literally spent seasons with her training.
yeah.
So I don't understand how she can be a Mary Sue. She was really well equipped for this mission. I mean, yes, she hadn't seen the White Walkers per se, but she had so much battle experience that, whatever. The problem was execution of that scene was a mess. It was like, how did she get in there? You were right. They had the whites standing behind the Night King, and you see the air brush past one of their hair. But it was like, how did she get past all of these things to like into the sky? That was like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. What just happened?
Because like, correct me if I'm wrong. Does she like basically just come out of nowhere?
Pretty much, and she's in like mid-air too when she does that. She like lunges at him.
I think this is why it's kind of season 8's kind of going down for me, because it's like I don't really remember it all that much.
Yeah, I mean, that was the problem for me, was just the execution, and the fact that, I know a lot of people, is called Game of Thrones for the show. We were focused on the throne itself, but literally the very first scene of this series has to do with White Walkers. Like, they open the entire show of season 1 focusing on White Walkers, and it just is such a bigger threat than Cersei was, that I don't know. Personally, I wish they had switched them. I wish that we had taken care of Cersei first, and then maybe they lost this battle and had to go down to King's Landing because the whites were on their way to King's Landing or something. I don't know. But it just felt like this is done in an episode. So Arya herself doing the job, fine. I'm cool with that. I wish we had gotten an actual showdown with Jon Snow and the Night King. I do wish we had gotten that. He didn't need to kill him, but his arc did lead to something with the Night King. Instead, he's like yelling at a dragon for some inexplicable reason. Like, what was he doing? Sitting there screaming at the dragon? I was like, okay. So obviously, the Night King was one of those. I think a lot of people were definitely disappointed in. Another death a lot of people were disappointed in was the death of Cersei Lannister. So how do you feel about the way Cersei and Jaime went out?
I like that they died together, but the one out was really lame. I expected either Jaime to stab her and then maybe at the same time like have her stab Jaime and kill him, like they both like kill each other, not get crumbled by a pile of debris. so in a way, like, I was happy that they died together because I think it came full circle, but at the end, like, it wasn't the way I wanted them to die. Like, I wanted Jaime to have that full-on redemption and be like, I literally hate you, I'm gonna kill you. and then like at the same time Cersei stabs him as he stabs her and they both die.
What about you, Brett?
I feel similar to Alex in a certain way that, the way they went out was so unceremonious, and it was like just such a letdown that, just crushed by rubble, and that was it. And I feel disappointed in the way they dealt with Jaime's arc in the end. I felt like the whole series was leading up to him kind of becoming his own person and separating from his family and getting rid of that Kingslayer name and stuff. And when he
Yeah.
left, I was like, my theory was after that
Yeah.
episode where he left after he was with Brienne for that
Brienne.
night, I thought he was going to kill Cersei, and instead, no,
That's
it was
what
like
I thought too.
exactly.
Yeah.
Because I right when that moment happened, because I saw that there was an outcry on like social media about that. I was like, no,
Yeah.
like I literally think he's like saying that so that he can go kill Cersei, and
Exactly.
then that's
Yeah.
gonna end up being
Yeah.
the case at all.
No, and then he ends up going and trying to save her again, and it's just like they said, they had it. They had it. All they had to do
Yeah.
was get him, sneak up, kill her, save everyone, and then but nope. Instead, they completely blew it again and had him be like, nope, he still loves her, he's still trying to save her, still trying to get away with her, and then they get killed by rocks. Like,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. The way they dealt with him. I mean, it was literally like the exact opposite of season 3, and I think that's what a big problem is. Season 3 was such a great season for Jamie
mm,
Lannister,
Yeah.
and really every season since then he continued to grow as a character.
yeah.
Right.
To the fact that we all cared about Jamie, the guy who we first get introduced to sleeping with his sister that pushes a little kid out of a window. They
Right.
did so much, like so much work was put into that to have him like break Brienne's heart and leave her the way he did, say that he doesn't care about the citizens when he has carried the name Kingslayer for the citizens and to kind of carry that burden on himself for that reason, and then for him to say in his final episode, oh, I couldn't care about these people, all I care about is
Mm,
Cersei. I mean, it's ridiculous. I wish we, yeah, if we could have gotten like some sort of conflicted moment where he was like,
Yeah.
still love you, but I have to do what's right, like I've done before. That would have been cool. And then yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
rubble. I mean, Cersei was so wasted this season.
yeah.
The memes are
Yeah.
there. She did literally stand at a window with a glass of wine for
Pretty
the
much.
entire. And she was one of the best villains in TV
I
history.
know, dude.
Absolutely.
Like, oh yeah, because it's like every time she popped on screen, you're just like, I want that bitch dead.
Yeah, she was just there. I mean, she would do something like when she killed Masande. Obviously, my rage filled
Yeah.
again, but part of my rage was aimed at the writers. Part of it at Cersei, a lot of just writers when Masande died the way she did. But it just was like, what's going on? And then to have her, the like biggest, most evil villain in this series, because she's the one who lasted the longest,
Right.
and
Right.
Ramsay arguably did worse things than Cersei did. She was a mastermind. And so to see her get crushed under rubble, begging for her child's life, that's where I get into
Yeah.
the misogyny aspect of season 8 is like, oh, we've just reduced this awesome, badass villain to in her lover's arms begging for her child's life. I don't know. And then it's even worse when you see the finale and Tyrion's able to
Yeah.
find him like that, and it's basically just like a little stack. It looked like
Yeah.
they could have stepped a few feet to the left and
And
they could
yeah.
have
Yeah.
so then I think my biggest problem, I mentioned it in my other one, is season 7. A lot of people really started to hammer down. And I was still holding out because, yes, I could see the cracks that people were talking about in season 7 as it was happening, but they were
Hmm.
more story based. Like we were starting to throw out mechanics of how to tell a story, but they were just kind of cheating and taking shortcuts on story. Season
Hmm.
8, they had to then take shortcuts on the characters. Like
Mm,
characters had to act completely out of the blue to make what
Hmm.
they said happen actually take place. Like Jamie Lannister or
Hmm.
like Daenerys, which we'll talk about here in a
Yeah.
second. These characters had to just come out of nowhere with something in order to accomplish what they needed to. And we talked about it being rushed, even if this is where George R. R. Martin told them it should have ended. I think as a responsible TV writer, I know they wanted the shock and awe of it all. They, if they knew they were done, they really couldn't have gone this story. I mean, they
Right.
couldn't come to this conclusion anyway. Anyhow, they should have changed the ending. I know George R. R. Martin might have been mad, but it's really the only way they could have properly ended their own story
Yeah.
that they set up.
I'm curious to know what like the broad strokes were that he gave them like after they got past the books, because I know that they were kind of going off of that, so I really don't know like how much of that they went off of in like 7 and especially 8. So that's kind of where I'm like, that's kind of where I was defending it too, because this is probably where George R. R. Martin's going, but at the same time, it's like also you have time to explain stuff in the book. You have more time to explain certain events. You have more time to explain why the characters may be acting out of character and are doing what they're doing. Whereas in the show, they literally just breeze over all of that.
Yeah. And they had painted themselves in the corner. So, like, season 6 was a really great season, I think, actually.
Yeah,
And to
I
their
love
credit,
Six. Yeah,
D&D, they had no book to go off of on season 6 either, and they just kind
yeah.
of made a lot of that up, presumably. But they painted themselves
Mhm.
into such a corner with how they ended season 6 with Cersei blowing up the Sept, into making her such a tyrannical figure that it doesn't make any sense for the people of King's Landing, one, to trust her after she did that
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
come into the walls like she brought them in. But two, we don't have any time. We don't focus on Cersei's arc enough. There would have been such a huge kickback, and people would have been pressing her claim hard after she pulled that stunt and just took the throne with literally zero claim to it. I mean, she had no claim to
Yeah.
be sitting on that higher throne, and we don't see anybody really push back. So just right there, they set up a really hard arc to bring in another figure like Daenerys to look worse, and that's why they really had to just shoot the shoot the priest with this one and go crazy. So that was the next big controversy, was Daenerys Targaryen in season 8, particularly episode 5, The Bells. She's sitting on that wall. They have surrendered. She has a surrendered city, and she decides to
To burn the Red Keep.
not only to just burn the Red Keep or go after the throne, she decides to burn the entire city. They literally make sure to show her zigzagging down
I
streets on
remember
her
that.
way up
Yep.
there. Um, so I guess what are your thoughts on Daenerys? We'll start with you, Brett, on this one.
Just sheer disappointment. I mean, it's feasible, I think. I mean, I know the whole show up until that point had, at least up until like say season 7, 8, they had, tried to set it up so that she was trying not to be like her father. She wasn't going to be the Mad Queen like the Mad King before her. She was going to be different. She was going to be for the people. Like she freed all the slaves of Marine, and she did all these things to show that she wasn't like her father. And while I wouldn't be completely opposed to her turning into sort of like a replicant of her father in the end, again, it was just the way they approached it. It was so sudden. It was like that. Like, it was quicker than that. The
Yeah.
snap of my fingers. It was, yeah, like you said, they surrendered, and then she just decided to kill everyone and everything anyway. And is a matter of that, it was like, I know they kind of built it up a little bit in that season, but it was like the bare minimum. You could just see her kind of starting to be a little bit, more antsy with decisions, and finding out that, like, John was actually her nephew, and finding out that, kind of realizing that Sansa isn't a big fan of her and stuff like that. And you can kind of see a few like little cracks, but again, it was only like in that season, and then she goes from
Yeah.
that to, burning the entire city and killing a bunch of children and all that stuff. And I'm like, that has nothing before this season would have led me to ever believe that her character would ever do something like this. So it's the
Yeah.
fact that they didn't plant those seeds early on and we didn't get to see them grow into that. It's the fact that they were literally like, here's the entire beanstalk in one episode, and then that
Mm.
beanstalk was a giant dragon burning small children. So it's
And
like,
I think what Alex has said, just kind of regarding her burning the Red Keep, is even if they sow some seeds or plant some seeds of an unstable leader, nothing in her character would have ever made anybody really believe, like if you think about what she's done and her
mhm,
acts, that she would just mow down a city like she did and kill innocent
Mhm.
people like she did indiscriminately. You could, if she had gone for the Red Keep and burnt it down, and the rebel fell on innocent people, but that was just a casualty of war for her to get her
mhm,
throne, I could have accepted that a whole lot more. And it still would have given you the conflict of is she moral because she just went to go get this throne and innocent people died because she burnt the Red Keep? But I mean, committing war crimes like this was like,
Yeah, like mass genocide
whoa,
by
Yeah,
fire.
nothing.
yeah,
Not even her most ruthless moments in the show even come close to equating to like that being the
that
next logical step in
Mm,
her arc. So, Alex, what do
right.
you think?
Yeah, I gotta kind of agree with Brett. Like in hindsight, I mean, it just seems like season 8 they just threw like all these roadblocks at her, like out of nowhere, and then it was just like, oh my god, like all of this character overcome everything. It's like, can she do it? Probably not. So, or we're just gonna have her go Mad Queen, which I'm fine with her going Mad Queen, but just do it better. Don't throw everything at us in like 4 episodes. I mean, I get that there's hints of it in previous
Mm.
seasons. You literally needed to have built that up at least for 2 seasons, maybe 2.5 seasons.
hmm
So I mean, and yeah, my memory was like jogging me because I thought she only did the Red Keep, but now that you said the whole city, I'm like, yeah, I remember her being like riding a hippogriff
Drogon.
because yeah,
The hippogriff.
Oh,
and
oh,
Harry Potter and just burning everything. So yeah,
losing her
and
mind.
looking back, yeah, looking back on it, it's not really that good of a look. It doesn't make that much sense.
Yeah, the only hints that I could see too really were like, especially in this season, because that was the only time we really got little hints. It was never hints towards things like that. It was hints towards like, oh, she might kill John, or maybe she might betray Sansa. It wasn't like,
Yeah,
oh, she's gonna burn thousands of people just because, like, lols, like, why not? The writers wrote it in there, so we got to do it.
Yeah,
It's
it
just
just, I
nothing
mean,
led to her ever
right.
doing that.
it was just such a heel turn. That was, I guess, my problem with people's defense of the action and defense of like this being her natural progression arc was they would, well, the writers, let's just look at what they pointed to. They pointed to her reaction to her brother dying. And I think that is a really male, ridiculous point of view, first off, because
Hmm.
this man literally physically, emotionally, and sexually abused her since she was small. She
Mhm.
tried to help him all throughout
Yeah,
season one before he died, and then he threatened a woman and the child of the call in their sacred place. Oop, I mean, she even tried in that episode to get him to stop so he wouldn't get killed. And it's a really creepy point of view for me to hear people being like, "Oh, well, she reacted really cold. She had no reaction." Well, I mean, sorry, I don't really expect
yeah,
women watching their abuser die.
right.
Hence, Sansa in the Battle of the Bastards watched
Yeah.
her abuser die stone cold.
Oh God, that was so
Yeah,
satisfying. Oh, I
No,
love that
like
moment.
it's
So
like no,
satisfying.
I know.
nobody thinks mad person in those moments because you shouldn't think mad person.
hmm
The next one was her
Hmm.
yelling to get into the city when they wouldn't let her in, and she said, I have 3 dragons. When they're full grown, I will burn cities, or I'll burn down a city and take what's mine." One, she was again leading her army, desperate. If they didn't get into that city, they were going to die. I mean, what are we talking about? Then she's yelling, "Where are my dragons?" Again, she's the mother of dragons. These are her children. They were stolen from her, and she's trying to find them. People making threats like this in these scenarios that people pointed to of her being like super mad, crazy woman underneath are just really ridiculous to me. I just can't get into that. And then we get into the slaves, and this is where I just can't get on board with people. Um, I I don't understand people's argument with this because we have world history, y'all. We have a history to show us. What happens when you come to slave owners and say, "Hey, you need to free these people"? Guess what? They don't listen. So,
Exactly.
in almost every single world history event where nations have had slaves and been forced to free them, there was a war. There is always a war to get the slave owners to free the slaves. And when in this action, there are slave owners who are nice to their slaves. Guess what? They still own other people. And they're
Mm,
still going to be taken over. They're going to have the reparations thrown at them, just like the mean slave owners did. Plenty of people died in all of these wars as well because they fought on the bad side of the slave owners. Whether or not they agreed with it or not, they were on that side of the war. So people who were like, oh my gosh, she nailed up all of the slave owners, even the ones who were good or trying to do something about it. Well, I mean, they let children be nailed up to crosses to greet her
Yeah.
as they died. So they didn't stand up and say no. So I just don't see that. I think that is crazy people talk to try to say
Yeah.
the way she behaved with the slave owners and burnt the slave owners and fought her war. Uh, people kill in the series. She just happens to have a bigger weapon, you know. So
Mhm.
Exactly.
and then the last one that a lot of people point to is the Tarleys. Again, I'm like, y'all, the Tarleys literally just killed off the Tyrell army who were loyal to Daenerys, who also the Tarleys were loyal to. They had pledged themselves to Lady Olenna, stabbed her in the back, and took over Highgarden. She also gave them a choice.
Yeah, I
She
was
was
gonna
willing
say she gave them the
Yep.
chance too.
their lives. They said no, and they died. Robb Stark did this. Yes, it led to his downfall, but at least his made sense. Ned Stark did this. Episode 1, he's chopping off a guy's head because he was running from whites. Jon Snow killed a 12-year-old. Yeah, we all really didn't like Ollie, but when you look at it, Ollie watched his parents die by wildlings, and then Jon Snow was helping the wildlings come into Winterfell. So, and he was being manipulated by adults. So, Jon Snow showed no mercy to Ollie because he was part of the betrayal of himself. All of the characters do stuff very similar to what Daenerys did with the Tarleys.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand how that's really mad either. So, most of the things people point to as her going mad or showing signs of madness throughout the series they just don't make any sense to me. And I think those are people who didn't like Daenerys or found her entitled. She had her
Mhm.
this moments. Yes, she was a hard leader, and and many
Hmm.
times she was unforgiving. But she was still somebody who learned throughout those first 6 seasons of the show from a lot of people who really taught her,
Right.
and she just kind of forgot it all, I guess. Kind of like she
Yeah.
forgot. I kind of like she
Yeah.
forgot about the
The,
Greyjoy
the
army.
end of episode 4, we'll just say.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's what just doesn't make sense. And then we get to this, and again, there was no reason for the North to behave like they did. That was my other problem. Maybe for a little bit they could distrust Daenerys, but especially after the war, there was really no reason for her to be
Yeah.
trusted, and the North
Mhm.
act like assholes. And there was also no reason for her to be alone. I was like, why is she sitting here alone? Where is Missandei? Like, why isn't Missandei up here with her? And then Sansa too, the whole, oh God. Well, Sansa, she she had her moments too. But the same thing with Sansa, there was really no reason for her to right out the gate, like just come so hard at Daenerys. And then it was like, oh, Daenerys.
Yeah.
I mean, she came at Daenerys hard right off the bat, and so
Yeah.
Daenerys back hard, and it was like, well, I mean, sorry, girl.
Yeah. It felt weird to me that like immediately they hated each other. It was just like, what
Yeah.
did Daenerys ever do to you? Like, what did you ever do to her?
Yeah.
Like,
And they wanted
there's
different
no.
things too. That's what I don't get,
Yeah.
right? All Sansa was just stuff for the North, and Daenerys was just like, "Hey, that's fine. Like, I'm gonna go take the throne," and they were like, "Okay, cool." But then they just hated each other. It's like I don't see
Yeah.
that. You don't have clashing ideals here, so why do you hate each other? You want different things. You're not against one another.
Yeah, and the way it came across for me is that like Sansa just hated Daenerys because it was like, oh, now you got Jon or something.
Yeah.
But like, I was like, there's no explanation as to like why you hate Daenerys. You just there's like you said, there's no clashing of ideologies. It's just like I don't like you because I don't like
And they both wanted Cersei
it.
dead
Yeah.
too, and like everything. It's
Yeah,
just
it's like you would think they would want to like at least ally their armies with each other, you know?
Yeah, it just and then the North being racist again. I can see it at the start with their racist reaction to like the Dothraki and the Unsullied. But if I remember correctly, the Dothraki and the Unsullied were the front lines of that war against the Whites,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
the Northmen. The Northmen were like in Winterfell when they got through. These people were literally trying to protect y'all and getting themselves killed. I would think y'all would ease up on how hard you were judging them after that, but apparently not. That's where my next big race issue comes up, and really my problem, even if George R. R. Martin goes down the route of Daenerys going Mad King or Mad Queen, and if she burns King's Landing in any sort of way like she does, is you've set up this character who is kind of the white savior. I have to always acknowledge that they
Yep.
Daenerys up as a
Yep.
white savior. I love her, but that's what her character was. But
Mhm.
she is still the champion of almost the only people of color in this universe, and she has worked her entire arc to free these people of color. So to make what Cersei was saying as like her xenophobic rants of the Dothraki screamers are going to come in here and rape us and kill us, the Unsullied are going to come in here and take away our way of life, and then to prove that right, it really didn't sit well
Yeah.
to watch that. To watch like, oh yeah, you poor white people, yeah, you were right. You never should have trusted those brownies. Look what they did with their
Yeah.
foreign queen. And it felt really gross. The way Missandei, I mentioned it earlier, was handled was really gross to me. And they fridged pretty much their only black female of the show to make her white friend go nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. And it didn't make sense. Why did they catch Missandei? Like, literally
I
everybody
just
else
I
landed on the other beach, but Missandei floated the opposite way and got captured. What? It makes no sense. And also, how does Cersei
yeah.
even know who Missandei is? Like, how did she know her? How did she know that this woman floating in the ocean was worth anything?
Well,
Yeah.
that was gonna be my next. I don't even think Missandei even met before, and it's just like, how does she find Missandei anyway? Why is she up on the top of the castle too? It's just there's not a lot of logical, like a lot of things that happen in that sequence. And one thing I will say though is that sequence did have something that people complain about. King's Landing, like all of a sudden had a beach. I was like, well, wasn't it always like half land and like half on land and half in water? So I was like, I don't really see that argument, but I totally see your argument, Larry. Right? Like they mishandled her, and it did not present a good image for the show at all.
Yeah, it was gross. And then of course the way that her dragon died was ridiculous. Oh my God, that was just so
Mm-hmm.
terrible. Like he got three perfect shots off from that distance. And apparently Daenerys is not only forgot when they just had a discussion about the fleet, she forgot in that time.
What was
Mm-hmm.
She's also
what
blind as a bat because they're right there and she's flying so high in the sky. Well, I don't know.
what was D&D's reason for that again?
That
I
she
forget. I
forgot.
forget what they
That
said at the end of that episode.
she kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet, but they
Oh,
didn't
that was
forget
it.
about her.
They just talked about it. Yeah.
I mean,
Brutal.
and
Even
then it
though
was
they just talked
also
about
like, you have Varys and Tyrion and all these Jon. We didn't send a scouting crew down beforehand. I mean, one of
Yeah.
you people thought to do this, and then two, did Cersei just send the Greyjoy fleet out there to just sit outside of Dragonstone all day, every day, or how did they know that they were going to defeat an army that overnight? And be on their way down, and then they were just sitting there waiting. I don't know, none of that. I mean, that was really a big stretch.
Yeah.
Logically, everything about that, I was like, what in the world? This is shock for shock's sake. And then also the last thing, I guess, is they set up this villain with one episode. Literally the most murderous villain your show has ever seen becomes Daenerys Targaryen in episode 5. She kills more people than anybody else combined, all the other characters combined on the show. And you have one episode left. I mean, that's part of the rushing. That's just mad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally,
Definitely.
I mean, how are they going to do it? And I think the way they did it was also very sexist. Is Daenerys throwing herself at Jon for the millionth time after he has her down and he stabs her, and it was just so terrible. But John's character, I also thought was just so terrible this season. I mean, it's memeable. He literally had 2 lines of dialogue the whole season. They made him an idiot. I mean, at that point, if you whoever you agree with, John, you just watch this woman burn down an entire city, and you're like this noble man, but you're still trying to defend the burning of an entire city.
I
What?
also thought it was really, really a bad idea and really stupid, honestly, that but it's the last dragon that Daenerys had that he burns the throne out of anger for
Yeah, because
Jon
he
killing
understood the
her.
symbolism of it and what the throne was and
Yeah,
everything,
he
right?
did it. Oh my gosh, the
A
the
dragon
script
has
leaked and he just
humanity.
did it. It was
Yeah, that was
so
cringeworthy.
dumb. It was so dumb. Yeah, I was like, you know what? Maybe people would have been happier if John wasn't on the throne, if the dragon had just straight up killed John. Because that probably would have been better than how John's story ended. Because it just made no, that was another part that made no sense. Why
Hmm.
would why would Grey Worm, who was literally killing unarmed prisoners in the street, slicing their throat, why would he take
Yeah.
John hostage after John apparently confessed to Daenerys' death? Because I don't know, there was no evidence. Nobody saw John do it, and they Drogon took the evidence away with him. So he went down, confessed his murder, and Grey Worm didn't just kill him. The Unsullied
Hmm.
captor. I don't understand.
Yeah. No, it's a very tangled web here with this final season. But yeah, no, I with those like last few things there, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. If he did confess to something like that, I think they'd pretty much just outright kill him. But yeah, that's the thing. Like, such a biggest gripe I had. Like I understand the symbolism of it with the burning the throne instead of John, but a dragon's not going to understand the symbolism of it. It doesn't
Exactly.
know what the
Let's make
throne
a
is.
dragon a human.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like it would
that's
have made more
basically what
sense.
they were telling me. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have made more sense if he would have just burned Jon, or if he would have just taken Daenerys and left. No, he burns the throne because he knew what the throne stood for, and that's what they were fighting over, and that's what caused all this. A dragon knew that, and it's just like, come on.
Oh, and then that speech. I also hated Tyrion's speech because it. Some people thought it was profound, but Tyrion's speech about, she killed bad men and we cheered her for it, so she thought she was right, and it was like again, no, she was right. She burned slave owners and she killed men who literally said they were going to rape her and have her horses rape her too until she died. And she's like, "No, you're not, because I'm getting out of here." What? Like that whole speech just made no sense. It's like, no, we cheered for her because we believed in her ideology and what she was doing,
Mhm.
not because I don't know. It was just so dumb. But then we get to Bran the Broken, and again, why I don't know why Tyrion was really left alive either. I don't know why that was why
He
he
was
wouldn't
the
have
one I
just killed him
expected to
too.
die. Yeah.
But that
He was definitely the one I expected. Yeah, to get ganked. Definitely.
yeah, it was that long old speech about stories, and they one name Bran the Broken, which is just a ridiculous name. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know if George R. R. Martin told them Bran is going to be the king and we'll call him Bran the Broken, or if they just made that up themselves after they knew he'd be on the throne, or what. But I mean, that's a horrible name. First of all, like, oh, that's cringy. Second of all, I mean, Bran. Oh,
Bran the
okay.
Broken, the three-eyed raven, king of the north.
They didn't set that up well either, because what, 2 episodes ago he was like, I can't be anything. I
King.
can't be
Yeah.
the warden of the north or anything. Because
Mhm.
Red
Yeah.
Raven, now suddenly I can be the king, and then that sly little line about why do you think I came all the way down here makes him kind of the ultimate villain, because that
Yeah.
makes it seem like he knew what Daenerys was going to do. Let it
Yeah.
happen because he knew he was going to become king. You're like, oh,
One thing I've never really understood too is like if he has like visions or something, like because I know that when Daenerys is burning the city, like there was that scene early on in the show where I think it was like he was having a vision where he saw like darkness or like smoke or something, and then we actually learned that that was Daenerys burning the city. I was like, if you can like see stuff like that, how can you not see yourself become king?
Mhm.
Like that didn't make any sense to me at all. Like if he can see things like that, like how can he not foresee like things in the future? Like that's a part of me says that like him becoming king makes sense because it's just like yeah, he can see what's coming from like a mile away. He can see what's coming in the future, but at the same time it's just like is he gonna act on it or is he just gonna ignore it like he did with everything else and just say I can't do anything? I also hated that scene where they picked like who
oh,
was going to become king. It, from what I remember, it was just like I don't want to be king. I don't want to be king. I don't want to be king. Let's make Bran king. Okay, he's king.
I mean,
That's
well,
basically how I remember it. But
Edward Tully wanted to be king.
make Samwell Tarly king.
I
That's who I
mean,
had voted for.
Yeah.
I also hated how Sansa became an independent nation, because I was like,
Mm.
I'm sorry. the Greyjoys have been fighting, and actually Daenerys promised them their freedom if they stopped raping and pillaging. So they had been promised by the queen y'all just killed that the Iron Islands would be independent again. But Yara just chills and is like, not like,
Yeah.
yo, we're leaving too. Also,
Mhm.
Dorne was the last. Even after they put up a bigger fight than the North to become part of the final seven, Dorne isn't going to be like, yo, us too. You're now four kingdoms. Like, I was like, okay. I mean, it's because it's the Starks and blah blah blah. But I was like,
Right.
it just doesn't make any logical sense for these
Mhm.
two particularly to not be like, peace, we're gone too. Have fun. We don't
Yeah.
want any part of this anymore. Bye. And then John goes back to the North. Kit Harington recently said he thought it was a great ending for his character. Then he said he hadn't actually watched the show since air date. Another thing is he abdicated the throne, which is a thing you can do. So, I mean, this whole thing with stupid Varys, like Varys's distrust of Daenerys came out of clear nowhere, and he didn't even know Jon
Yeah.
Snow. So, Varys's distrust literally made no sense either. But that's a different thing too. I mean, he and Tyrion apparently, took their brains out of their skulls because they
This whole
became
season.
they went from like super smart characters to maybe the dumbest of them all. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but John, I would have been okay with John, doing something if they hadn't set it up where he should have been dead. But then, two, it was just like, what's the point of the wall now? Why are the wildlings going back north of the wall? Like they had been
Yeah.
fighting to get into Winterfell because north of the wall is trash. Nobody wants to
Mhm.
live up there because there's no resources. It's bitter, it's cold, it's horrible. And now the wildlings are like, yo, John, let's go. We heading back out to that terrible place. And then I was also like, Sansa, you're now queen of your own nation. You could
Hmm.
just let John chill here. I'm sure
Yeah.
the Unsullied, the Greyjoys, or Dorne are not going to randomly just pop on over to make sure you're keeping John as a prisoner on the wall. It was like, okay, what is this?
Arya had the coolest like, oh, what could happen with her next type of thing, like where she's like kind of like going off to like say, I was like, oh, that's interesting. I want to know a little bit
Yeah.
more about that. But yeah, I gotta agree with you. It's just like it doesn't really make sense that John goes back to the wall and like the wildlings go back to the wall and all that, and it's just I feel like it would have worked better for John, like you said, Larry, if he just had that, like if he just went out on like a hero's death, or if, like or if his story actually led him to dying. It
Mhm.
that I think that was the most logical thing they could have done with Jon Snow.
Yeah, I just think the whole ending was a mess. Honestly, going back a little bit earlier with like Bran, I hated it, especially what they did with his
Oh,
character because they could have made him really interesting. Instead, the whole last like 2 seasons or more, he barely had any lines. He barely did
Yeah.
anything besides sit there and stare off into the distance. Except he just got turned into such a boring, useless character. And then for them to be like, "Oh yeah, he has the best stories," it's like, well, how do you know that though? Like he just kind of sits there and doesn't say anything and doesn't do anything. And well, yeah, and like you were saying too, like Bran the Broken is such an awful name.
oh
Who would
my
want to be known
God.
as the Broken?
I
It's
know,
such
right?
a shit name.
Exactly.
Like it's pretty
But
offensive,
Especially if
first of
you're
all,
king.
for somebody else to
yeah,
name you that, for somebody else to be like, yo, you're Bran the Broken, after
yeah.
his sister just threw down and was like, yo, he can't be king, he can't have children. Like, I was like, oh, all of this is leading up to a good inaugural speech there,
Oh
Bran.
yeah. Yeah, no, and with the endings and stuff, I liked how Sansa was like the queen of the North, but again, yeah, I think it's kind of dumb the whole like independent nation and with the other nations,
Yeah.
it really doesn't fit. John's is like, I mean, I think that was part of the agreement or whatever that he had to be banned for killing Daenerys, but in the same sense, I'm sure that, like you said, no one's gonna go up there and check on him.
Right.
But I do think Arya had the most fitting ending. I think that her character really
Yeah.
did come full circle, and I think that was like that's who she was, right? She was an explorer. She was always the one that was away from the rest of the group. She was on her own journey the whole time, and I think that was fitting for her to go off and to explore and discover new things and see what else the world has
Hmm.
in store for her. But yeah. Other than that, yeah, just the whole thing. Like I cannot express how like I was screaming at the TV. I swear when they were like, "Yeah, let's make Bran the king," and I was like, "Excuse me, what?" And then I was like, this whole show was a waste. Like at the very end, the character who just did this
The
for
whole
the whole
time.
last 3 seasons is the king. I'm like, are you joking?
to have that discussion and not even bring up John's heritage was outrageous. I mean, it was just so ridiculous that that was the point where you were like, wow, they just did this Aegon Targaryen thing to drive Daenerys mad and no other reason. Like it had literally no effect and no purpose other than just drive another like dagger into Daenerys to give her like
Mm,
another mad
Yeah.
queen moment. The same thing kind of with Arya's. I do really I appreciate where she ended up, especially because it was a callback to an earlier season, so it was like okay, it makes sense. What
Yeah.
I didn't like was one of the things that set up earlier in the season, which was kind of another line of distrust for Daenerys, is when she was like, "We're family," and gave this whole speech about not trusting anybody that's not her family and being up there with them. So for her to like go from that to literally like, "Oh, just kidding, peace out, y'all," like seemed a little bit weird. And I was like, "Y'all shouldn't have done this." Like, one, that speech made no sense about her being like, "We don't need anybody else. We just need us, the Starks." And then to get there. But also, Arya didn't really have much to do other than run around with
Right.
armor, because she also should have been dead at least 3 times in
mm.
episode 5. I mean, Homegirl got like buildings dropped on her. She got like a direct fire blast at one moment. I was like, girl, what is going on, Arya? You should be dead. I'm sorry. Not finding a randomly perfectly pristine white horse amongst the destruction.
Another one of
Uh,
those symbolic things that they were trying to
Yeah.
do. It's
it's
like,
just
Oh
so
yeah,
oh,
many.
I
Uh,
forgot about that. Yeah, because
all of
she
that
walks out at the end,
symbolism.
right? And there's that random
Yeah.
horse.
Well, just
yeah, through all the
in there,
rubble.
I'm
just
I'm
chill.
I'm realizing as we're talking, I'm like, wow, I forgot about a lot of this stuff, and it's probably for the best.
Yeah, really.
Because being reminded of it again is why I got so annoyed about it all
Yeah.
over again. I was like, oh my gosh, no, it was just so terrible.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know, this in the season, and it's such a letdown for a show that I know so many millions upon millions loved so much to come crashing so gloriously in the final
Down. Yeah.
season. Like you said, I'm the same, Alex. I own the other 7 seasons all on DVD and Blu-ray. I was not touching season.
Yeah. There's a part of me that wants to get 8 just to like have it, just because I'm a completionist, but like and just like have it like rot and like collect dust on my shelf. But like it's
Light
just
of
like
a physical media
it's
collector. I want
like
it
going.
for my collection.
Yeah, it's just like, but like going back to like season 8, it's just like it's something I didn't hate when I first watched it, but it's kind of like a movie that you watch in the theater that you enjoy, for me at least, that you enjoy, and then 5 minutes later you don't remember a single thing about it. That's kind of how I feel with season 8. I also wasn't a huge fan of Braun,
Oh my
that whole
god.
storyline that went nowhere. Like Braun, like whether he had to kill Jamie or Tyrion. That was actually something I was really looking forward to,
Mm,
and then it just kind of evaporates. So what do you guys think of that? Like I was really looking forward to that. It just kind of evaporates. The whole argument there is that, oh, it's kind of implied. It's like, yeah, but look, I'm not somebody that needs everything spoon fed to me, but like you can't just forget about a plot line like that. And so I was just wondering what you guys thought about that.
I think
Oh,
it's just another
sorry.
one of those things. It's another
Yeah.
one of those wasted things, right? It's another thing that they
Yeah.
pretty much just forgot about. Like they're just throwing all these plot lines out, throwing all these character arcs out. It just all logic kind of went out of the window just to get certain
Yeah.
things to happen. They're like, well, we want Daenerys to be the Mad Queen. How do we do that? I don't know. Well, I'm gonna write it down here in episode 5, and we'll figure it out. And it's just another one of those things that it was like they started something that could have been really interesting, and then it just did fit into what they were trying to do. So it's like
Right.
either why have it in there in the first place or why not see it fulfilled, but instead they were like, nope,
Right.
because now we have to get all the dragon stuff and Bran the Broken, and yeah, we just kind of honestly, if you ask them, they're like, yeah, we honestly just forgot about it.
Yeah.
I think that's the answer you'd get.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it just was so ridiculous. I mean, I actually think Braun should have died in the loot train battle of season 7.
Hmm.
I mean, they've kept him alive and kept him prevalent because he was kind of a fan favorite. We all liked Braun, but then it just shows you he had like literally nothing to do. Like it was
Right.
pointless. His arc in season 8 was so pointless that I was like, you should have just killed him off in season 7. It would have been much
Yeah.
better than this, like keeping him around. And then to And then to give him the position and to give him High Garden, to give him what it was, he Master of Coin, I believe,
Yeah,
is
Master of
I
Coin.
think so. Yeah.
outrageous. It's so stupid that I was like, okay, Bran, you are a terrible leader right off the bat, apparently, from your assignments. Tyrion was, bar none, the worst hand of the anything, king or queen, we saw in the
Yeah.
entire. I don't think he made a single right decision as hand of the
I
queen.
don't think
Daenerys.
he did
Yeah, he had
either.
multiple
Yeah.
shots too.
Like, I'm pretty sure every single thing he told her that she listened to, which she listened a lot. That was the other thing with Daenerys, that she doesn't, she just does burn things. And I'm like, no, she listened most all the time. When her advisors that gave her advice, she listened to them. And it's just unfortunate Tyrion, again, kind of forgot how to think and became horrible as her hand of the queen. I'm like, why is he in this position as a punishment? I don't know. Yeah, all of them were bad, except for Brienne. Obviously,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Brie. I like
obviously
Brienne.
she
Yeah.
should be a knight.
Yeah.
And episode 2 was a good episode. It was legit the
Yeah.
only episode from this season that I did actually like. It's unfortunate that Brienne's entire season 8 to me though wrapped around Jamie, because
Mhm.
Yeah.
even the person who knighted her was Jamie, and then he sleeps with her. I mean, the whole thing was just like, oh God. And then you have that moment of him leaving her, and she's like crying and all that. And that was another thing of like, ugh, I don't care that we're seeing Brienne cry, but to have this display for this character, almost her last one, thank goodness we saw her in the final episode.
I know, right?
Like, I don't, this is just a mess. Like, you're ruining Jamie's character, and you're like kind of dragging Brienne's character down into the mud too with
Mm,
it.
Mhm.
That whole game about her being a virgin, I mean, that whole thing was just like, what? Yeah, we're sitting here
It
making
did need
jokes
to be in
about
there.
virginity. We're sitting here having Sansa saying if it wasn't for her rapist, she wouldn't be the leader and woman she is today. Are you kidding? Oh, God, that was a moment that I was like, did they really
yeah.
just have Sansa say, I'd still be a little bird if not for Ramsay raping and beating me and torturing me? Uh,
Yeah.
no, you
Oh,
wouldn't, Sansa.
so
Arya,
bad.
not a little bird, and that's because you live life, Sansa, and you could
Exactly.
easily live life and become a great leader without having to be raped as a woman. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
um, that was another like, oh gosh, Sansa, stop, please.
Yeah, it was rough. It's almost like they
Yeah.
completely forgot how to write female
It
characters.
was so
Exactly.
bad. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why I think it was
It,
just so
it,
sexist. The whole last
they,
season he was sexist.
Yeah, it was
they just forgot.
heavily leaned to that.
Yeah, they just forgot character growth in general. Honestly, it was just. I gotta like thinking about it now. Yeah, I gotta agree, Larry. Like everybody's out of character in the season, and it's just.
Hmm.
It's like thinking about it now. It's like, how did I not see this when I first saw it? You know,
Yeah.
it's just oh
Yeah.
my god. Like the more we talk about it, the more I'm just like, god damn.
Yeah, it was rough. It was
And then,
rough to get through.
and yeah, the jokes were funny, but if it had been a good season, I could forgive a Starbucks cup. I can forgive stuff
Yeah,
like that.
see, like
But when the season is this terrible and you just
yeah,
shown no effort from the writers, the fact that you also did that, I do want to say, Ramli Dwagiotti, I cannot say his last name, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's
oh, the
Uh,
composer.
yes,
amazing,
so good.
amazing
Yeah.
work.
Only good thing about the season.
He never let us down. I even
Mhm.
think the actors, I mean, they were given hot
They
garbage.
yeah, like
They
every.
go with a
I,
terrible.
I think the production value aside from the writing, like I think everybody did like made their best attempt to at least give it their all. You know,
Mhm.
like from the acting to the set designs. I mean the CGI. I mean the dragons. Like those are probably the best dragons I've seen put on screen. It's just yeah, for me mostly it's just the writing that's a huge letdown, and some of the directing I will say too.
Well, yeah. I mean, well, again, D&D, you let everyone down with your direction of the last episode, and I just find it hilarious that they have the gall to like submit the season finale that they directed in for the Emmys for directing and writing. I was like, are you kidding me, dude? Oh God, like stop it. Also, David Benioff, stop writing. Like, stop
I
giving him
know.
writing jobs.
I see.
After
Like
Origins, Wolverine, Gemini
Mhm.
Man, and season 8,
oh,
we're done with you.
I really I know it's a writing team. I honestly just want to pin it more on him. I feel like more of this stupidity is him than DB Weiss, but but for the sake, since they were partners in crime, they're they're both equally at fault. So
So,
Yeah.
so
But I
how
was
did
gonna say too, the biggest thing is, and I know Larry agrees with me on this because I've seen it various times, but it was like essentially the show was so good up until a certain point, and that point was basically when they ran out of things to adapt. Once they started writing
yeah,
on their own, that's when stuff went to shit. And like you said, season 6 was still like, I think some of it was on their own, but I think a lot of it was still
yeah,
adapted from George's work. And
yeah,
then season 7 and season 8 was just them completely on their own. I'm sure there was still some advising, but for the most part, they were on their own for those last 2 seasons, and it shows. Like you go back, the
hmm
first 6 seasons compared to 7 and 8, especially 8, like what we've been saying this whole time. You could tell that this is them writing it on their own versus adapting material. So when they're adapting the material, they did a great job adapting it for TV.
yeah.
But when they started writing on
yeah,
their own and
yeah.
they had full control of these characters and these events, we
No
got what we
idea.
got.
It showed that they didn't
Yeah,
understand the characters that they had been adapting for years. They
Exactly.
were they were good at taking the work and kind of condensing it for the screen, but they
right.
never really took the time. Well, I mean, one of them even literally said themes are for eighth grade book reports in an interview, and it's just so they never took the time to understand the material they were adapting, to
Mm.
understand these characters. So when they were unleashed on their own, they just couldn't do it at all.
Did they write every episode, or did they have other
Yeah,
writers write
no,
it too? Because I know they had a writers room. It is every episode they
yeah,
wrote.
no, they did not have a writer's room. They pretty
Wow.
much, yeah, I think maybe there was a couple episodes where they had another writer in as well, but they wrote it themselves. And again,
Hmm.
it shows, you know, their problems with
Yeah,
females and people of color really could have been helped if you had other
yeah,
people there to kind of be like, wait,
right.
this doesn't look good. Let's try to
Revise that.
rework.
Yeah.
Let's rework this. This is
Yeah.
too much bitches be crazy season 8. Let's think of different ways to do things. So after season 8 now, we're talking about DVDs and stuff. We'll start with you, Alex. How does season 8 affect your overall impressions of the show and your ability to rewatch and absorb the show and enjoy it?
I think. Well, see, I've only watched the show through once, so I mean, I could, if I had to, like, I can force myself to watch like absolute garbage. So if I had,
We know,
if I
Alex.
had,
We know.
so if I had to, like, if I wanted to rewatch a show, like, obviously I'd watch all 8 just because of that, and because I'm a completionist and my OCD would be through the roof. And plus two, where I've only watched it once, I would be able to pick up on more new things like this time, but like probably after like a second time I'll be like, yeah, I'm just gonna stop at 7 or something. I so
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't even have this on DVD yet. Like these DVDs for me, I mean, my brother got into the show before I did, so that's why I was a late bloomer. But he had all the DVDs, so
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, I'll get them, for him when they come out. Didn't even bother with 8. It's just, yeah, it's one of those. It's not like I'm gonna be like, oh, hey, like, petition uh
No.
HBO to remake season 8, because I'm not one of those people, but I'm more of like an accept what it is.
Mm.
It's bad. Just you can't do anything about it. So I guess that's kind of my whole stance on that. It's just you gotta live with it. It's there. You can't erase it from memory. You can't do anything about it. But at the same time, it's just, is season 8 really something I really want to watch again? Probably not. Now that we've had this huge discussion, I think you guys swayed me into more, because I was because
Brought
I
you to
was
the
on the
dark
positive.
side.
Yeah, I was on the positive, and then coming into this, I was mixed, and now everything you guys have said, I'm like, yeah, this was
Mm.
bad. So like, kind of like how I equated before. Like when I first saw season 8, it was more just like an enjoyable kind of ride, kind of like an
Yeah.
enjoyable movie, but instantly forgettable like 2 minutes after you watch it.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that's kind of my whole experience. I feel like I feel like if I watched season 8 again, it would just, every episode, I wouldn't even remember what happened like 5 minutes into the episode.
What about you, Brett?
I want to say first, interestingly enough, and just before Alex went there, I did check. I went and checked for the writing, and interestingly enough, the only 2 episodes that people consider to be good, being 1 and 2, were actually written by other
Yeah, there
people,
you go.
and then episode 3, 4, 5, and 6 were written exclusively by BAMTubeTV. So there you have it. Um, for me, it's kind of a mixed bag. Sort of, in a sense, it's like I've seen the show like twice and a half now. I watched it once by myself, and then I got my girlfriend into it, and we watched it all the way through. And then we started it. We got to like season 3 or something before the final season aired because we were trying to catch up and we kind of got lazy. So like two and a
Yeah.
half times. But I'm sort of in the same boat as Alex. I'm a completionist. For me, if I want to watch like a random movie, like if I'm in the mood for The Dark Knight, I'll be like, all right, well now I gotta watch Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises.
Exactly.
Like that's
Exactly.
just who I am. So when it comes to this show, it hasn't altered my overall opinion, I guess I could say, because I think that season 1 to 6 is some of the best television in history. And even season 7 definitely has its enjoyable moments. It is a bit rushed. It has its sloppy moments. It does cut a few corners, but it's still enjoyable TV. And they didn't completely demolish the characters at that point.
Yeah.
But season 8 is so disappointing that it does hurt, but it didn't like bring down my rating or anything like that. And it didn't, it's not something like a good example like The Walking Dead where I used to love it and then it started going on and then I saw my rating drop from like
Right.
a 10 to a
Yeah.
9 to an 8 to a 7. It just kind of went out with a bang, a pop, and then it was done. So it hasn't brought down my overall feelings on the show. It's still one of my favorite shows of all time. And if I were to go back and watch it, I probably would force myself to get through season 8 just to get that finale. But
Yeah.
as a completionist, but it's disappointing. But again, it's one of those things that as much as I dislike it, I've kind of just come to accept it for what it is. I don't like it by any means, but the first 6 seasons gave me some of the best television I have ever watched in my life. And I
Yeah.
love it so much. It's so near dear to my heart. Those characters, I adore them, everything that goes on. And like I said, even season 7 has its moments. So my overall thoughts on the show haven't changed. But again, the last season, if I did decide to force myself through it, I'm not going to like it by any means. But, I don't know. Kind of a mixed bag. I know I'm a little all over.
Right.
Yeah, I struggle with this question. I still, a year later, I have zero desire to pretty much ever watch Game of Thrones again. I have watched through the series at least several times before it all went down, and uh, I'm definitely one of those people that knowing where the characters end, the fact that I don't really want to go back and watch
Yeah.
seasons
Yeah.
1 through 6 or 7 even, because just knowing what this is leading to, where this is leading up to, you can always say like, oh, just stop at the end of season 7, but then you stop with an incomplete story, like you say.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
I don't want that ending either. They kind of ended the characters where it was all like, what was the point of any of this?
Yeah.
Mhm.
With
For a
John
lot of
going back to the wall and all of this, it was kind of just like, okay, well, cool. I mean, who cares? But I really struggle. I don't think I'd want to watch the series again. At least at this point, maybe after I've cured my own PTSD, seek some deep diving therapy into this brain. Maybe one day I can come back to it, or maybe they'll just do it again because it was so popular that maybe one day, years down the line, they're like, you know what? We're going to do a Song of Ice and Fire this time around. Maybe if George R. R. Martin ever completes his books, they'll decide, let's reboot the series and give it another go around and see what happens. I don't know if they'll do it. I don't know if I'd even want them to do it. It was a big disappointment, to say the least. I think a lot of folks out there agree. I know there are some of you who still defend season 8 and had a good time with it. More power to you. I don't
I was on
understand.
that boat for a while.
I
Not
don't
so much.
understand you, but I'm glad you had fun with it. Don't mind my Twitter because every chance I get, I will still probably roast and or retweet jabs, but that's just me. So thank you all so much for watching along with this ranty discussion about Game of Thrones and 8, and just kind of a look back at the end of one of the biggest and still arguably one of the greatest TV shows to ever air. Thank you so much to Alex and to Brett for joining me. Alex, do you want to go ahead and let people know where they can find you across the internet?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Larry, for having me on. You can find me at my official website, alexmaddenmovies.mystrikingly.com. All of my social media links are there, and then I'll just plug in my YouTube as well. Just my name, Alex Madden, and you can find me on YouTube.
Awesome. And Brett, where can they find you?
Perfect. I would also like to say thank you for having me on. I'm always up for discussing Game of Thrones, especially just about anything. You know, I love movie, I love TV, so it's happy to be back collabing with you once again. It's been a few times now. It's a pleasure every time. So, you can find me anywhere. It's all about the same. So you can find me on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. All of those are at BAMTubeTV. And also, if you'd like to do my reviews, since I don't do them on YouTube anymore, I still do reviews on Letterboxd at BAM Movie Reviews. So I'm still there.
Awesome. And of course, I will link all of their stuff down in the description below. Make sure that you go over, show them some love. Even if you liked season 8 more than we did, still show their channel some love, please. And while you're here, make sure to hit that like button down below if you enjoyed this video and subscribe to the channel so you are always up to date on my latest videos. I love you all so much for your continued support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.